There are seasons in life when it feels like you're climbing a mountain wrapped in fog. No one beside you, no one cheering, no one watching. You keep moving, keep trying, keep honoring the promise you made to yourself. Yet the world outside is eerily quiet. No one says, "I'm proud of you." No one notices the silent wars you've survived. And sooner or later, you ask the question that hurts the most. Is it worth it if no one witnesses it? But it's precisely in that solitude that a different kind of strength begins to form, one that doesn't require applause, permission, or proof. Carl Jung once said that every rebirth begins with dissolution. When there's no one left to lean on, it isn't the end. It's a sign your soul is preparing to enter a new stage, one where you become your own source of power. In today's video, we're going to walk through that journey, 7 steps to rise, even when no one is by your side. Because the moment you stop waiting for someone to lift you up, you discover a profound truth. Everything you've ever searched for in the outer world, strength, love, peace, has always been inside you, waiting to be awakened. And when it wakes, you don't just rise, you begin to walk with your own light. Number 1. Loneliness, the silent teacher of strength. There are moments when life quietly pulls the world away from you. Familiar conversations stop feeling alive. People you once felt close to begin to feel far. Everything on the surface looks the same. Your job, your routines, your relationships. Yet inside you know something is shifting. No one tells you this is the beginning of growth, because most people fear this stage. But for Jung, this is the first sign of the night sea journey, the dark night of the soul. When you no longer resonate with the old world, and to step into the new, you must pass through your deepest shadow, loneliness. The loneliness Jung spoke of isn't just being physically alone in an empty room. It's the feeling of being disconnected from what once made you feel you belonged. You still smile, you still talk, but deep down you know what's happening around you no longer touches your soul. The world speaks a language you no longer understand, and you're left with only yourself. Many people think reaching this point means failure, but in truth, it's the moment your soul begins to separate from the persona, the mask you wore to fit in. That feeling of "no one understands me" isn't proof you're lost, it's proof you're getting closer to your real self. Jung believed a person truly matures only when they dare to face themselves in solitude, not when someone listens, but when the outside noise goes silent and you're forced to hear your inner voice. At this stage, many people panic. They run into work, relationships, distractions, anything that helps them escape the emptiness. But the more they avoid it, the larger the emptiness becomes. Loneliness doesn't come to punish you. It comes to deepen you. It comes to rebuild your foundation from within. I once knew a woman who, after her divorce, fell into disorientation. She had always been surrounded by friends and noise, but when everything collapsed, her apartment became frighteningly quiet. Instead of filling the void with dates or work, she learned to sit in silence, first for minutes, then for hours. She cooked for herself, read, journaled, and finally faced questions she had avoided for years. Months later, she told me, "Silence isn't my enemy anymore. It's where I finally hear myself." That was what Jung called the meeting with the self, the moment you stop running and start coming home. When there's no one to depend on, the pressure forces you to develop discipline and inner steadiness. Like a climber without a safety rope, every step becomes conscious, every action becomes a vow to yourself, and every vow you keep becomes a brick in your strength. Loneliness doesn't come to make you weak, it comes to make you unshakable. It is the gym of the soul, where your essence is forged into steel. One day you'll look back and realize those quiet months were the strongest you've ever been. The image of an oak tree in winter always reminds me of this. When every other tree sheds its leaves, the oak stands in the cold wind. No flowers, no color, no attention. But in that winter, its roots are growing deeper, preparing for spring. Humans are the same.
Every lonely season is the soul's winter, but if you stay long enough, you'll discover that spring is waiting behind it. Jung once said, "In all chaos there is a cosmos, in all disorder a secret order." So if you're standing in the darkness of loneliness, don't be afraid. It isn't weakness. It's proof you're leaving an old path and opening a new one, because the soul that is ready to be reborn must first dissolve, and only when the world becomes quiet can you hear the inner whisper, "It's time to rise." Remember, no one is coming to lift you up, but that isn't bad news, because in that very moment, true strength is born. No one can hand you resilience, yet loneliness can teach you how to forge it. Every time you survive a long night, you're not just overcoming fear, you're rewriting your story. Number 2, stop seeking emotional comfort from others. After learning to stand in solitude, you realize something sharp and liberating. What exhausts us isn't loneliness, it's expecting someone else to fix it. Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that matter most." And when you rely on others to make you feel okay, every silence, every delay, every unmet response feels like collapse. That isn't love. It's emotional dependency, what Jung saw as the mark of an unintegrated ego. After the lonely warrior comes the next lesson. Learn to soothe yourself. When you stop seeking reassurance and approval from the outside, that's when the self begins to take the wheel. I once met a woman in group therapy who confessed she nearly panicked when her boyfriend didn't reply to her texts. She would check her phone dozens of times, imagining the worst. "I know it's irrational," she said, "but when he's silent, I feel like I don't exist." Months later, she discovered the fear wasn't truly about him. It came from childhood. Whenever she was sad, her parents would dismiss her. "Don't be dramatic," or simply walk away. Her unconscious learned, "My feelings don't matter." And since then, she had searched for someone to prove otherwise. Jung called this the trap of emotional projection, when we use other people as mirrors to determine our worth. When they respond, we feel valuable. When they withdraw, we lose ourselves. But the truth is, no one can be your savior forever. The more you depend on others for stability, the more you lose the ability to regulate yourself. Self-soothing doesn't mean coldness or isolation. It means becoming the one who listens to your emotions. When sadness rises, instead of sprinting outward to find relief, you stay. You place your hand on your heart and whisper, "I'm still here." That small act is the beginning of emotional independence, an essential stage of individuation, where you stop merging with the collective and become an autonomous self. A person who knows how to comfort themselves doesn't need constant replies to feel real. They don't need compliments to keep going. They can sit alone in a cafe, drink their coffee slowly, and feel complete in that moment. That isn't emptiness, that is freedom. Freedom from the need to be validated. Jung said dependence is the shadow of love. We call it attachment, but often it's fear of abandonment. The immature ego craves someone to confirm worthiness. But when you look deeply into that fear, you realize it isn't a curse, it's an invitation to become the parent you once needed but didn't have. Modern psychology calls this emotional independence. It's not rejecting love. It's refusing to hand your emotional steering wheel to anyone else. You can still love, still connect, but you don't disappear when relationships shift. When someone leaves, you grieve, but you don't collapse. When someone goes quiet, you listen, but you don't lose your worth. Someone with emotional independence doesn't need a rescuer. They can lift themselves up, wipe their own tears, and keep walking. And only from that place can they love purely, not out of need, but out of choice. Perhaps that's what Jung meant when he said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Because when you stop seeking comfort from others, you begin to see your own power, a power that doesn't depend, doesn't borrow, and cannot be taken away. From the moment you stop waiting for someone else to make you feel whole, you begin to grow up. And if you're in that stage right now, learning to stand alone with no one understanding or comforting you, see it as a sign your soul is maturing. Let me know you're still here by leaving one word in the comments, still. as a signal that even when no one stands beside you, you still choose to stand with yourself. Number 3, stop complaining, the language of the victim ego. After you learned solitude and self-soothing, another subtle but demanding challenge appears. Stop complaining. Complaining is how the ego keeps you anchored to the comfort zone, the place where you get to call yourself the victim. It convinces you that you have a reason not to change. But here's the irony. Every time you complain, you reinforce the belief that you are powerless, silently sending the message, I have no strength. Jung called this the shadow of self-pity. When you're trapped there, you stop acting and start repeating the same question, why me? As if the universe owed you a personal explanation. But the real question isn't why me. The real question is what can I do with this? The moment you change that question, the energy stops.
But seeing yourself clearly, hit like on this video. Let it be your signal to the universe. I'm ready to be my own light. Number 5, rise quickly. Turn failure into fire. Have you ever wondered why, even after becoming stronger and calmer, life still makes you fall, especially when no one is there to lift you? Failure in its truest form isn't just loss, it's stumbling on the path you believed in most. It's thinking you've outgrown your ego, only for one small event, one word to shake you again. You feel weak, ashamed, and in that loneliness, you're tempted to become the pleasing version of yourself again, just to feel accepted. But as Jung taught, those falls aren't here to destroy you, they're here to reveal what remains unhealed, the parts still waiting to be integrated and loved. Every fall brings the shadow back, not as punishment, but as illumination. It highlights your hidden arrogance, your fear of criticism, your hunger for approval. And the moment you rise again without applause or support, the self expands. In a letter to Freud, Jung wrote, "Mistakes are, after all, the foundations of truth." Failure doesn't weaken you, it makes you real, because only when no one catches you do you learn how to walk with your own strength. I once knew a woman who ran a small business. After years of effort, she was betrayed by her co-founder and lost almost everything. For months, she lived in guilt and fear. Then her therapist asked, if this isn't an ending, but a lesson, what is it teaching you? She went quiet, then said, maybe I never truly listened to my intuition. From that moment, she began journaling, not to complain, but to learn. A year later, she reopened her company, smaller, but steadier. I'm not afraid to fall anymore, she said. Every fall forces me to be more honest with myself. That is how failure becomes fire. You can't grow in complete safety, because safety lulls the unconscious to sleep. But when you hit bottom, the layers of pretense burn away, and the soul stands bare. From a neuroscience perspective, when you fail, the brain processes the gap between expectation and reality. If you respond with fear and self-blame, stress rises and you freeze. But when you take action, even a small step, your mind begins to release the chemistry of progress. In other words, regret paralyzes, but action heals. Think of the phoenix, the mythical bird that regenerates by burning itself. When it grows old, it dives into flame, sheds its ashes, and rises again brighter. Humans are the same. If you dare to rise from your own ashes, you'll see what burned away wasn't you. It was the shell that finished its purpose. Jung once said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. When you face failure without judgment, wounds stop being enemies and become teachers. In pain, awareness is born. And every failure gives you two choices. Let it define you or let it refine you. When you say, I am a failure, you imprison yourself in the past. But when you say, I am learning, you open the future. Rock bottom is not the end. It's the ground you push from. Strong souls aren't created in comfort. They're forged in collapse. Just as nettle becomes a sword only through heat, humans discover their strength when they fall and refuse to retreat. Remember, falling doesn't make you weak. Staying down does. So don't wait for someone to lift you. Rise quickly,
firmly with a heart still warm. That moment, you don't just overcome failure, you become the flame that cannot be extinguished. Number 6, act without relying on inspiration. Will over emotion. After learning to rise from falls, a deeper lesson awaits. Act even when you don't feel ready. If solitude forged your strength, discipline will make you shine. Jung wrote that will is the energy capable of reorganizing the entire psyche. It isn't just the force to do, it is the power to transcend fleeting emotion in service of lasting meaning. When you only act from inspiration, the ego still rules, the part of you that seeks comfort. But when you act beyond feeling, you no longer require motivation because you've submitted to a higher order, the order of the self, where action flows from purpose, not mood. Inspiration is a gift. Discipline is the foundation. There will be days when you feel no motivation, no hope, no meaning. But if on those days you still sit down, still continue, one small step, you are training your greatest power, will over emotion. Jung said most people lose their life force waiting for inspiration instead of cultivating will. If you only act when you feel excited, your life becomes full of beginnings but empty of mastery. Because inspiration is wind, it comes and goes, but will is direction. It keeps the ship moving even when the wind disappears. I'm reminded of psychologist Angela Duckworth and her concept of grit, the endurance of passion and perseverance. Extraordinary achievers aren't always the most talented. They're the ones who continue when enthusiasm fades, especially when no one is cheering. Jung once said, "Freedom of will is the ability to do gladly that which I must do." Freedom isn't doing what you like, it is gladly doing what is necessary. When you rise above emotion, you stop being its victim and become its guide. A friend of mine, a single mother working 2 jobs, once told me she woke up at 5 a.m. every day, cooking, working, surviving. Eventually, she felt drained. She said, "I lost all passion." Then one day her son asked, "Mom, what happened to your dream?" Something shifted. That night she decided to start again, not from inspiration, but from responsibility to herself. She began small, waking 15 minutes earlier to read, writing 3 daily goals, and saving every spare dollar for her dream bakery. Some days she was exhausted, but she kept moving. "I stopped waiting for motivation," she told me. "I needed will. My son needs to see his mother not give up." A year later, she opened a small bakery. No one helped, no one encouraged, but she kept walking. She learned what you must learn. Willpower isn't a feeling, it's a decision to continue even when your heart is heavy. This is the truth. Inspiration doesn't create will. Will creates inspiration. When you begin, you don't need to feel ready. You only need one honest step. Inspiration follows as a reward for perseverance. Strong-willed people aren't emotionless. They simply refuse to let emotion drive the car. They still fear, doubt, and tire, but they act for something greater: values, commitments, integrity. Each time you do what is right instead of what is easy, you strengthen the bridge between consciousness and soul, between the small ego and the mature self. One day you'll realize your greatest progress didn't happen in moments of excitement. It happened in moments of resistance, especially when you were alone, with no reminders and no encouragement. So if today you feel uninspired, unseen, unsupported, remember, you don't need any of that to move. You need one small decision to start. Not perfectly, not dramatically. Simply start. Consistency will take you further than anyone who ever tried to help you, to the far shore of yourself. If you've ever had to keep going alone, without motivation, without support, guided only by will, share your story in the comments, because maybe your story will be the small flame that keeps someone else from giving up today. Number 7, you don't need anyone to understand you. Everything you seek is within. There comes a moment after all the silent effort when you realize you've done everything right. You kept walking, you stayed disciplined, you stayed faithful, and still the outer world remains quiet. No one knows, no one understands, no one says thank you. And in that silence, a subtle emptiness rises. Do all these efforts even matter? This is the final lesson. When no one is left to lean on, you must find your own light. Because when you crave understanding, you're still asking others to validate your existence, but no one can fully understand you because only you know how deep your inner journey has been. Jung wrote that your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. The answers you seek are already within your unconscious. You simply need enough stillness to hear them. After years of living to be understood, you begin to see the truth. Not everyone has the capacity to meet you at your depth. Sometimes they only see what makes them comfortable. And that isn't always cruelty, it's limitation. In a world where everyone is searching for themselves, few are truly able to see another soul. When you stop demanding understanding from the outside, you begin to return inward, where contradictions start to harmonize. Fear and courage, pain and healing, darkness and light. There, you no longer need anyone to confirm you are enough. You only need to know you are being true to your soul, and that is enough. When that happens, you stop looking for saviors because you become your own. I once heard the story of a young painter who spent years painting for trends and sales until she fell into creative exhaustion. One day, she left the city, rented a small house by the lake, and cut off communication for a month. She painted again, not to show, not to sell, but to listen to what her soul wanted to say. When she returned, her art had